Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Lisa Oligas. In this edition, we examine how art imitates life. The Pulitzer Prize-winning play Proof by David Auburn is in rehearsals at Joplin Little Theater right now. For full disclosure, I am the director of the show, which explores the impact of mental illness, in particular schizophrenia, on a family. The play is the story of Catherine, who at 25 years old is worried about inheriting not only her father's mathematical genius, but his mental illness as well. Her brilliant father, Robert, is a professor famous for having written several major mathematical proofs. The play is a family drama as it deals with Catherine and her manipulative older sister and how they deal with their father's illness. In today's show, we'll talk with some of the actors, but we begin our discussion with the Joplin representatives of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Becky Ward, and NAMI Treasurer Robert Ward. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
I mean, this is a serious topic, but we want to talk about the fact that the character of Robert, the father, hears voices, talks to people. Is this typical of schizophrenia and other mental illness?
That is absolutely the typical schizophrenia symptoms. Actually, my mother had schizophrenia, so I'm very familiar with schizophrenia.
Are there other traits or characteristics that one might observe?
Yes, a lot of people think that delusions and hallucinations are the same. They are actually different. Delusions can be of grandeur, of feeling importance in yourself and of things that are going on in the world. Hallucinations are specific, either hearing or seeing, shadows or voices. And there can be a lot of other negative type symptoms, such as facial expressions that are completely absent with schizophrenia, or overactions, depending on how it affects the person.
They mentioned in the play he thought this was happening in his mid-20s. Is that typical? Is there a certain age when schizophrenia might be diagnosed?
Yes, typically in men it is the early to mid-20s. Women are typically in their late 20s when they are diagnosed.
It seems odd that this is a disease of the young.
Yes, very, very much so. In fact, if somebody reaches 45 and then all of a sudden gets a diagnosis, it's very, very rare.
Very rare. So Robert in the play asks Catherine about her friends and seems to be remembering her childhood friends. Is there confusion about time and people? Is that something that is attributed to schizophrenia? Is it also kind of partial dementia? Can be early onset dementia? Are those factors here?
I think it can be either. You do sometimes have delayed memories with schizophrenia. However, dementia is probably more of the cause for something like that.
How common is dementia and the concerns about the impact on a family? You mentioned schizophrenia in your family. Yes. I know you had dementia in your family,
My dad
Robert.
had,
Yeah. So
dementia.
what are the impacts on family when you're talking about how do we care for this individual? Can that be a crisis for families?
Yeah, it's extremely challenging. They quite often do not want to admit that there's anything wrong, or they truly don't believe there's anything wrong. Their brain does not comprehend that they're having a crisis.
And I don't know if you had siblings. I mean, is that a factor that comes in as well, Robert, of how to care for this individual?
Yeah, it was, my dad had dementia for about 2 years before he passed away, and I was helping my mom look after him a lot. My second wife and I were helping my mom do that. And there's 10 signs of dementia. He only had about 3 of them, but it was pretty hard to get along with him at times, and it was the same with my brothers because they visited him quite often. So yeah.
Is it hard amongst the other family members? There's 2 sisters who have different ideas of how someone should be cared for, whether they should be put in an institution. Is that typically a common problem?
It is, and it can be very scary for a family because you don't want the family member with some type of mental illness to become offended or hate the family, and that's quite often how it feels like it's going to happen.
So, and what can things, I mean, what would you recommend as to family when they're searching for resources as to how to deal with a problem like this? I mean, some people say, oh, they'll do better at home. Some feel they're going to do better away. How do you weigh those things when you're dealing with someone who might be schizophrenic?
I think you first have to see what the family dynamics are. If there is someone who is available in today's society, everybody works. You have to just to make ends meet.
Right.
And if you do have someone available, if they can and are able to physically and mentally deal with the care of an individual, that's great. But I think it needs to be a family decision on what will work best.
Right. And with schizophrenia, I mean, are there now medications that can make a big difference in people's lives? Are there therapies people can try that would help?
Yes. Therapy isn't so much the answer with schizophrenia. It is usually chemical type imbalance. And yes, there are medications. However, many people who are on them say they feel blunted and cannot react to things and they don't like the way it makes them feel. But it helps them to be able to work in society better.
What are some of the long-term effects of schizophrenia?
I would say it becomes a problem for the person with schizophrenia in that they start separating themselves from not only their family and their loved ones, but from reality. And so then they feel offended and upset when the family responds negatively or what they feel is negatively to what they are experiencing.
Is this an illness that worsens over time?
Yes.
And gets more severe?
Yes, it does. The earlier the intervention, the easier it is to get help and to not end up with some of those complications near the end.
Okay. So what would be some of those complications you're talking about?
A lot of times there's severe anger and they can become very hurtful physically and emotionally to their family. It can really kind of scar families. So if they can start getting medication so that they can interact better and easier with their families, it helps a lot for them and their family.
There's a mention of him not being able to care for himself or not, even when it comes to hygiene. Is that common as well? I mean,
as it progresses, yes, they forget. They just forget to take care of themselves. It isn't a priority. They will have their own kind of agenda on what their priority is.
where they might obsess over a certain priority?
Absolutely. Some people, it does kind of become almost an obsessive compulsive thing, washing hands or doing things that could be harmful.
And in this play, Robert is a mathematician, so he is pouring himself into doing what he believes is his math work.
Yes. And and that's, while that really isn't harmful, but if you're ignoring the other necessities of life, not eating, not bathing, not doing the things that you need to, or forgetting to take your medications, then it definitely can become harmful to the person.
So how can someone who may know someone or a family who are struggling with these issues reach out to NAMI?
Reach out to NAMI, primary care physician, psychiatrist, anyone who can help you to understand it better and to help your family work better.
I mean, is there family counseling that can also help?
Absolutely. There are a lot of therapists out there that will do family counseling and help them to deal with those things.
Is this something that's more common in today's world? Do we see a growing number of people with schizophrenia?
It is actually one of the lowest numbers in mental illness. I have some numbers, 24 million people or 1 in 300, which seems huge, but when you think that overall 1 in 5 people have mental illness, it's a lot smaller than what some of the others may be.
All right. Well, Becky Ward, Robert Ward, thank you for joining us and enlightening us on this topic. Appreciate you being here. Yep. When we come back, we'll talk with some of the actors in the show, Proof. Welcome back. In Proof, there is a family dynamic with Robert the father, Catherine, and her sister Claire, and then add to that a former student of their father's named Hal, who becomes an unexpected suitor for Catherine. All the characters are pieces of a puzzle in search for the truth behind a mysterious new mathematical proof discovered in the home. Joining us are Chelsea Bennett, an MSSU graduate playing Catherine, and Elijah Brown, a current MSSU student who plays Hal. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks for having us.
So without giving away all of the play, because we don't want to do that for our audiences, Chelsea, tell us some of the concerns Catherine has about her father's mental state.
Yeah, so they don't come out and say in the script what mental health problem he has. They kind of allude to schizophrenia, which can present itself when you're in your mid-20s, and she has just turned 25. So she's a little worried that she might become like her father and have some of his mental health problems as well.
How old were you when it started?
Mid-20s? 23? 4? Is that what you're worried about?
I thought about it.
Really?
How come I not?
Just getting a year older means nothing,
It's
Catherine.
not just getting older.
It's me.
Thought about it?
Because she herself is a mathematician too, so she hasn't inherited a little bit of his genius. I mean, he's considered a genius. So she's got that quality as well, right? I mean, and is that part of the struggle for her, is that she also wants to be known for her math
Yeah.
as a mathematician?
Yeah, I think she wants to follow in her dad's footsteps and make him proud, but also not end up like him.
Yeah. So what drew you to this play, to this character?
Well, when I found out about the show, I really liked. I have a really close relationship with my father, and so I really liked their relationship. And I had to take care of my dad through some physical health problems, so I could just really relate to her. And so I felt like that would make it a little bit easier to act the part.
You can bring something to it
Yeah.
from your own personal experience. So it is a drama. How do you as an actress tap into those kind of emotional scenes? Because there's some arguments with the sister, and then there's some emotions even with the dad. How do you do that as an actress?
I think part of it is just taking, the script and putting it to the tune of your own life. So taking if I read a letter from my dad, I wouldn't think about it as, that Robert's some weird old mathematician. I would think about it as my own father, or fighting. I have 3 sisters. I'd be fighting with my own sister. But also just, when I look at Robert, the actor who's playing him as Sean, I see my dad, and I just act like I'm talking to my dad. And so you kind of do what would be realistic reactions, and also what the character would do, and kind of blend those together.
Elijah Brown is here too. Tell us how you got involved, your character Hal gets involved with this family.
So Robert is Hal's mentor, and he is basically, he comes in presenting a thesis or a dissertation sort of deal, and so he kind of gets involved with Catherine and Robert in that way of having that connection through his him pursuing his career.
Yeah. You're a mathematician as well in this, and
Yes.
you unfortunately have some of the mathematical terminology. Is that a challenge for you?
I'd say that's probably one of the biggest challenges as far as this show has gone, because, I am not math savvy in any way, shape, or form, and so it's presented itself as a challenge to me, being excited about math when I, grew up not being excited about math in any way.
Not the favorite subject for you.
Not at all.
So you develop a relationship with Catherine. Can that be difficult or challenging for both of you on stage to do romantic scenes? What is the best way to, I guess, tackle those?
Well, I think I've known Elijah for a while. We did some stuff in college, and the show we just did last with each other, he had to kiss someone else. It's just a part of the job, and when it comes down to it, you're just putting your lips to someone else's lips.
It helps when you're familiar with a person,
Yeah,
though.
it does, yeah.
Rather than a stranger.
Yeah, I think it would be a lot harder with a stranger.
Break the ice, get it
Yeah.
over with, make it part of the scene, right?
Yes.
So, Catherine, your father, Robert, is considered a genius. How is math its own character in the show for both of you? I mean, does it have its own kind of place?
Yeah, I think because of how everyone relates to math, I think for Robert, it's kind of like his child that he's taught and brought up, and
Very passionate.
Yes, he's very passionate about, knows like the back of his hand. And for Claire, the sister, it might be more like a distant family friend that she doesn't really know that well. And then I feel like for Catherine, that it's kind of like an old friend, or like, a security stuffed animal like a kid has, and it like really makes her feel safe and happy. And then I feel like for a while she's kind of lost it, she's misplaced it, and she's trying to find it again.
And you're a mathematician too.
So for Hal, I'd say math is this entity that is giving him, something to look forward to in life. I mean, this has been his, he's been pursuing this as a career his, whole entire
He wants to
life.
write a great mathematical proof, but he's
Yes.
maybe going to be a teacher.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's like, an unrequited love maybe that he'll
Yes.
just, he's still working on it.
All right, well, break a leg and have a great show. We're going to talk to some of the other actors next.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll talk with the actor playing Catherine's father, Sean Wake, and the actress playing Catherine's sister, Kylie Wheeler. We'll be back. Joplin Little Theater is doing a production of the Pulitzer Prize-winning play Proof. Joining us now with more on the discussion is Sean Wake, who plays Robert, a mathematical genius who experiences some mental illness and is Catherine's father, and Catherine's sister, who is played by Kylie Wheeler. She plays the role of Claire. Thank you both for being here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So, Sean, we'll start with you because you play Robert, who we've talked about as possibly schizophrenic. Tell us what drew you to this role, and did you have any experience with mental illness in your lifetime that give you some understanding?
For the role, I'm familiar with the play because I used to teach in theater appreciation, and every semester, as part of the play, part of the course, the play that was selected for the modern script to read was Proof. And so for many years,
Read, analyzed it.
twice a year, but it was nice to have, 100 students to get, 100 different thoughts on it, takes on it every semester. So that's pretty much what drew me to it, other than the fact of wanting to get back on the stage. I hadn't been on stage for a long time.
Yeah.
Experience with mental illness. My grandmother, it's not schizophrenia, but my grandmother had Alzheimer's, and she lived with us, and I watched that just progress, and as she slowly went downhill, but trying to keep her wits about her, and then trying to make sense of the things that she was saying.
You could see the frustration in an individual who's starting to lose touch, right?
Yeah, she really wasn't frustrated because she didn't really know that she was losing. It just, she would say something, and I would have no clue what she was talking about. And it was just kind of confusing. For once, she mentioned something about a bivouac, which is an Army term for a tent or something. I had no idea what she
Where
was
that
talking.
came from.
No.
So, Kylie, you play Claire. Kylie, you play Claire, Catherine's sister. And we know that mental illness we just heard from others, it can have an impact on family and family dynamics. Tell us a little about your character, what she had wanted for her father, and why that might create sort of a hostile dynamic or hostile territory in this drama.
Right. Catherine and Claire definitely want different things for their father. And Claire is more realistic, I guess you could say, because she says he has mental illness, he cannot take care of himself any longer, he needs to be professionally taken care of. And that is just where they disagree. And so there's a lot of conflict between those two characters.
What drew you to this role?
Well, I read this play in undergrad as a theater major, and I remember thinking in class, this is such a grounded, intimate play. I love it. I don't care if I'm acting in it or doing crew in it. One day I'm going to be a part of this project.
It's easy to understand conversation. It is they speak like others would speak. Talk to us about, this is art imitating life. Do you feel like it's very realistic, and you know, have you had any experience with mental illness in your life that you would say, oh, I can bring this to the table?
Absolutely. I've worked in skilled nursing facility, assisted living, memory care, and it is more often than not very hard for the family to put their family member in that situation, and it's really not an easy decision, but it would have been for Claire because that's what she wanted. She believes that that's just the way that it's supposed to be.
Does that conflict with what you personally think?
You know, that's really hard. I think it really is different family to family. I don't know about this situation though. What was the right decision?
So talk to us about the play as what you hope audiences take away from this if they see a play like this, when they see Proof.
I think that they should come away with an understanding of the family members who have to deal with it, okay, and how it can impact their personal lives, and not take that for granted, and allow that person to be who they are, and to try to understand what they're going through. So it's a tough thing to do, especially if you've never had firsthand experience with it. It's a tough experience.
It can be very emotional. And Kylie, what would you hope that people talk about? I mean, this is it's a drama. There's family drama. What kind of conversations would you hope it sparks?
I hope that people can just relate to it, and because this is not a fantastical show like a lot of musicals. It's very real, and you can get romantic drama, family drama, mental illness. There are just so many topics that are not, especially all of them at the same time, included in most shows. And so I think that that's just going to be a wow factor and leave people wanting to come back for a second performance.
Yeah, these are things that many families will deal with, and so it's kind of nice to get to relate to those characters. Are you having fun doing it?
It's so much fun.
I'm having a blast, yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. When we come back, we visit with the set designer for Proof and learn of an exciting change to the future lineup of shows at Joplin Little Theater. Welcome back to Newsmakers. We're now joined by the designer of the set for the production of Proof, Marilyn Bolden. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, you've had a busy weekend of working and building and things like that at the theater. Tell us what goes into designing a set for a show, and when you're thinking about it, what are some of the challenges of creating this? Takes place in a backyard, mostly, and on the deck of a porch of a house in Chicago, right?
Right. So you're thinking about the weather, you're thinking about the family that's in the house and how they've maintained or not maintained the house. Really, the most important thing first is to really dive into the script and see how the characters have made this house their home. And that can then lead you into what have they done to then not only care for this house, but let this house care for them. And I think there's a lot of that in the script in this show.
What would you say are some of the challenges? Because since it's taking place in the back part, there are things going on in the house. And is it difficult to make that look like there's something happening while you're outside?
I think maybe part of the challenge is just making sure that our audience feels like they are indeed looking at the backyard, back of a Chicago brownstone or a St. Louis brownstone. So we want the lighting to be correct. We don't want the house to look too shiny or polished. That reflects light, and that can be a problem. We want the windows to look authentic. We want them to be able to sort of see the house in a 3D effect.
Right.
So they feel like they almost are not only in the backyard, but they're in the home too, and they get the full experience.
Well, and there's even an upstairs sort of
There is an
window,
upstairs, and
which
that's always a challenge because we can't
stories.
fit a 2-story brownstone in to the theater. But we can make you think there's one in there. You betcha.
So, Joplin Little Theater, changing subjects a little bit. After Proof is a show called Leading Ladies, and then after that, Joplin Little Theater secured the rights to do Funny Girl. So you're going to get to direct that. How exciting is that for you?
It's very exciting. I'm thrilled. It's a fantastic musical. It's very funny. It's got a beautiful score. Yeah, I'm excited about it.
And so this will replace Bonnie and Clyde. Is it a big cast for Funny Girls?
It is a big cast. There are 6 principals, and then we go from the 6 principals to anywhere from 15 to 20 supporting characters. So it's quite a large show.
Give us an idea of what it's about. I mean, there is a movie out there, Barbara
Yes.
Streisand, quite famous, but
Yes.
what else can we know about
Barbara
it?
Streisand was in the movie Funny Girl, and she played Fanny Bryce. It originally, as far as theatrically, it opened in 1964 on Broadway, and Barbara Streisand originated that role. And it takes place in the 1920s. It's about Fanny Bryce, her rise to superstardom
With the Ziegfeld Follies, right?
via the Ziegfeld Follies and radio and Hollywood. So she was a triple threat superstar, and we get to kind of follow her journey because she wasn't your typical pretty Ziegfeld girl.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of humor in there and a lot of growing pains and a relationship that we get to follow, and her relationship with her mother, and it's quite a ride.
All in the midst of big song, big
Big
dance.
songs,
Big dance.
songs that are very familiar. Big dance songs that are very familiar to people. The song "People," the song "Don't Rain on My Parade." So
Big songs.
Yes, big songs, big show, big.
And are you ready?
Yes.
So when does it audition?
Auditions are in March, and the show opens in mid-May.
All right. So it'll be an exciting time for JLT to have this because it's never actually been
It's
performed
never
there.
been done at JLT. No,
That's
it's the
exciting.
first time. Yeah, very, very exciting. for
Lots
such
of
a great
opportunities
musical.
for folks to come out.
Yes.
And then the show after Proof, which Proof is January 11th through the 15th. After that will be Leading Ladies. So, and then comes Funny Girl. So
Comes Funny Girl.
all the things, the wheels are turning already, right?
Living at the theater.
So one of the things you've discovered in working on Proof is the idea of painting the set. So you're going to be doing a lot of that as well, right?
Yes, one of our crew, David, is going to actually paint the facade of the home, and he's a very brilliant and very thoughtful artist, and so I think it will be a beautiful home.
Theater can be a great place for artists to
Yes,
unite and express
yes.
themselves and be creative.
There's something for everyone in theater.
All right. Thank you, Marilyn Bolden, for joining us
you.
to talk about it today.
My pleasure.
That wraps up this edition of Newsmakers. I'm Lisa Oligas. Thanks for watching.